Cool. Well, we want to just quickly, hopefully everyone's got a candle. So we're really trying to, I suppose, just wanting to just talk real life, and we're doing a few things that are pretty countercultural and probably not countercultural in the sense of like, I think you would agree that it's getting harder and harder to live out the way of following Jesus, basically, and kind of what Jesus spoke about and how we should do that. And so today, you've all got a candle. If you don't, get one on the way out. And the candles are really there to represent something that I want to quickly talk about. That's a massive and hugely important part of how we want to do the culture of Empower, because we believe it's the culture of the Bible. And we don't talk a lot about it in the Western church, not enough, but we want to talk about it a lot. And that, I suppose, is the, I think the overarching theme is we acknowledge that God has a rhythm in the way that he does stuff. And so tonight, a really important and significant part of God's rhythm is this thing that he instituted with the Israelites in Exodus chapter 16 called the Sabbath. And the Jewish people, to this day, they've added a little bit to it now. And one of the things that they do, and they've added to it, is the lighting of a candle. And the lighting of the candle, it represents the beginning of Sabbath. And, one of the practices that Alicia and I have been trying to implement, in all transparency, it's hard. It's hard when you got kids and you got devices and you got phones and you got emails and you got all those sorts of things. And it's hard because your rest can, I think I've confused in the past, in just absolute honesty, I've confused days off with Sabbath. And I think they're two different things. But I wanted to spend a few minutes just talking about this idea. And really, it's an invitation to invite you on this journey of really, number one, it's an invitation from God to have a Sabbath. And we'll talk about what that means practically. But it's an invitation to go on a journey to kind of ask that question, what does my Sabbath look like? And there's so much, like literally, that's how small the font is. So we're going to be here for at least 14,000 hours. But I'll just read a few scriptures, right? I'll read a few scriptures. I'm kind of not joking. But I think one of the things that I want you to know is that the Sabbath is a gift from God. And it's an important part of the rhythm of our Christianity. As I said, it's not a day off. It's different to a day off, really. And the difference is not like days off are meant to be restful, I hope, for you. They are for me. But really what I mean by that is like a Sabbath, a day off really is for yourself. A Sabbath is for the Lord. I didn't finish the story, but Alicia and I, we get a candle out and we do it and we kind of light the candle. And for our family, it's this idea of like all work goes away, all devices go away, all electronics go away, everything goes away, except the beauty of the presence of Jesus in the context of our family. And we're still asking that our children have that revelation. And we light a candle, and generally our thing is like, as long as the candle's burning, there's Netflix is off, texting's out, all of it. And it's an adjustment for us, like just being real, because it's so easy just in a downtime to slip into my office and open up and see something comes up. I like YouTube, and so some viral video come, oh, that looks good. Mr. Beast has given away $1 million. Wonderful. Whatever it might be, he's a viral video guy. It's important, but we have seen the value even in the last couple of weeks on this idea of rest. And so I want you to understand that the practice of Sabbath, if the world is your master, the practice of Sabbath becomes a burden. But when Jesus is your Lord, Sabbath is a gift. And that's really important to note. And I'm saying all that to saying, like, we're struggling to get into this rhythm. And what am I saying? I'm putting up my hand really high to say that's because we serve the world's way of doing things more than we actually realize. Check this out. Exodus 20, verse 8. I'm sure this is the 10 Commandments, right? Really important. I'll just point a few things out, then we'll go home. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Exodus 20, verse 8. 6 days you shall labour and do all your work, but the seventh day is a day. The seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. And on it you shall not do any work, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, but he rested the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Few quick things. Firstly, the Sabbath day is in the 10 Commandments. Like, I think, sure, we're under a new covenant, you know, and we have 2 things, love your neighbour, love God, you know. But realistically, the 10 Commandments are found within that. If you didn't know, 6 of the commandments actually relate to how you and I relate to each other. And 4 commandments are connected to how we relate to God and how our relationship is healthy with him. And one of those commandments is Sabbath. So we don't think about idolatry, for example. I suppose, well, when we think about all of the other commandments, I think we think of them in this frame of reference of like, yeah, of course, I'm not going to murder. That makes sense. I'm not going to steal, you know, shouldn't have any other gods before me, all those sorts of things. But when it comes to the Sabbath, number one, because I think there's been no teaching on it in the church. Because to be honest with you, it's been too hard to teach in our Western culture without undoing a whole lot of our Western ways of doing life, probably more importantly, and church in some ways. We've wrestled with this personally, this idea of like, if we tell people to do the Sabbath and to be people of rest and to, you know, people are reading this book that we gave out a couple of weeks ago, and one of them is The Gift of Limitation. Now everyone's quitting being leaders. I'm just messing, but you know what I'm talking about. But it's this open journey, right? That, like, where is everyone that was here on Saturday? They got their lasagna and they're gone. You know, but truly, like, we're committed to the long haul of doing things the way that God has asked us to. So, the other thing, just noticing Exodus 20, is it's like all the other ones are like, you shall not have any other gods but before me. But there's a full commentary on the Sabbath in Exodus 20. Where does the Sabbath come from? It doesn't, you know, the power of first mentions is an important thing in studying the Bible. And it comes from Exodus 16. It doesn't actually, the first time the word Sabbath is mentioned is not in Genesis, although we see that, right? But the Sabbath is a principle that runs right throughout the Bible, not just in the context of creation or the Israelites. It's right throughout the Bible. And I might mention that in a moment. But Exodus 16 says this. Where is it? Exodus chapter 16. I hope let's not read Exodus 16. You know, Exodus 16 is them. They've just come out of Egypt. And as they've come out of Egypt, God gives them manna. And as a result of God giving them manna, there's this journey. So this is the first time the word Sabbath is mentioned. And this is what I want to drill into tonight, because I want you to see that Sabbath is actually a massive countercultural step of faith to have it in your life. Because just exactly like it was for the Israelites, right? Because the issue of Sabbath for the Israelites, remember what he said, you could gather manna on 6 days. On the 6th day, gather double. But you got to remember the Israelites were slaves. Even though they're free, they're still slaves. All they're used to doing is producing. They didn't have a day off. So they came out of Egypt with a slave mentality, right? So they weren't under Pharaoh anymore out externally, but they were still under Pharaoh in their hearts. And so we know the story that a lot of them tried to gather up. I've got to get some extra for tomorrow because it's not going to be there the next day. And what happens? It went moldy, it went seedy, it went gross, like it spoiled. And it was God saying, on the seventh day, just one day a week, you've got to trust me. And Sabbath at its heart is an invitation to God's people for us to trust him at a deeper level. Trust him at a deeper level. Mark mentions the Sabbath as well, the Gospel of Mark, and it says, we don't have time for that. I'll do this in a message one day and we'll talk about it then. Two really quick things about the Sabbath. Number one, it says that you're a child of God. You're not a child or a slave of Pharaoh. You're a child of God. So Sabbath was commanded so that the people of God would no longer be identified by their relationship to Pharaoh, but they would now be identified with their relationship with their Father, Yahweh. Can you see what's happening? Can you see that application to your own life? And so when you light this candle, what you're saying is, I am not a slave of Pharaoh. You know, I wish, you guys are about to have a baby, which is so exciting. I wish when we had young kids, it was something that we implemented early on. I wish it was something that we knew. Instead, we thought trusting God was like being out 1 billion hours a week at, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and trust the Lord with the kids, right? Being real. And they're the churches I've been a part of for the last 20 years, right? That is the Western church, right? And I wish this was a thing that we knew. There are so many, I won't exaggerate, there are families on a fairly regular basis that come to me and be like, there's not the youth program's not in our stage of church life, right? The youth program's not what it is compared to other youth ministries and everything like that. I get it. It's not. It just is what it is. But the truth is, Mum and Dad, you're missing the point. The youth ministry doesn't disciple your children. It tells parents to train their children in the way that they'll go, not the youth pastor. And so it's important that we're pushing back on the cultural norms and saying, hey, part of our worship and devotion to him is that Pharaoh is not our king. And we've got to trust God. Slaves cannot take the day off. This is what lighting the candle is. This is what Sabbath is. When you light the candle, slaves can't take the day off. But people that are free can. Slaves work. But when we light the candle, when we participate in the gift of Sabbath, we're no longer identifying or defining ourselves by our productivity or our strength. I read a really impactful book. It was called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And I want to encourage you to grab it. It's a good book. And it talks about these really countercultural ancient ideas of us embracing the way of Jesus. Can I quickly read you one story? Mark 1:35. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up and left the house and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him. And when they found him, they explained, everyone is looking for you. Jesus replied, let us go somewhere else. Let us go somewhere else. And this passage is absolutely profound. This is Just before Jesus is healing people, he's casting out demons. Then he gets up in the early in the morning and goes to pray. Jesus, at times in his ministry, actually walked like, I can't believe this is coming out of my mouth. He actually walked away from need. It's pretty profound, right? Because we're taught not to do that. And I suppose the bigger picture for us, even in pioneering the church, in leading in power and all the rest of it, is we're having some wild conversations like this. That like they're not leadership team, big kind of that sort of thing conversations. But our heart is not to have big for the sake of big. Our heart is to have people that are, I can see a day, and I just want to be honest with what I see in my spirit. But I can see, I saw in my spirit tonight as I got that prophetic song around, we're not going to let the rocks out praise. I actually, with my eyes closed, saw you guys dancing around this room like you were standing on hot coals. And I'm not trying to stereotype a praise. I'm just trying to say that there's a letting go that needs to happen. There was a moment when Beck started sharing, and many moments obviously tonight, about this desperation. And I can see in our future, as we learn to yield to the Spirit better, all of us, I can hear that groaning in the Spirit coming out. We're not there yet. But that's what these nights are about pushing us in that direction. And so Jesus is like, I'm all about resting. And we know that about God. Mark chapter 2, verse 27, just a little bit later says, the Sabbath, this is Jesus speaking, was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. And so the Sabbath is a gift. It's a burden or a gift depending on who you worship. And this is challenging to me. So I'm free to take the Sabbath, as I was saying before, we're not defined. When we take the Sabbath, we're saying we're not defined by our productivity. Matt Garner is not defined by how big the Sunday attendance is. My kids are not going to remember what Sundays look like. They're not going to care. What they're going to care about is, was Dad who he was in the pulpit in this living room, down at the basketball court, whatever the story is, I'm free to take the Sabbath because productivity doesn't define me. And I think it's important for us to note that God just has this rhythm. And we want you to take a candle because we want you to be mindful in your own home, in your own space, with your own family, whatever that looks like. Married couples, children, just spouses, empty nesters, whatever that is. All of the above, whoever you are. We want you to take this candle. The candle's just a thing that the Jewish people did where they lit the candle. The woman of the house actually traditionally in Jewish culture lights the candle. She says a blessing, basically an acknowledgement that God is the Lord and that we trust him. And the candle can just preach all by itself, to be perfectly honest with you. But we want you at some point in time to take the candle and to light the candle. And not just light it in a day off. Don't have a day off mentality about it. Have a mentality that says, Lord, this is your time. And these are just 4 things: stop, rest, delight, and contemplate. That's what the word Sabbath means. It means to stop. It means to cease from work and to trust God that manna's going to be provided on that next day. The emails can wait, the work can wait. Trust God. Rest speaks of, even around this idea of rhythm. Even God said to the land, to the Israelites, every 7 years it had to be rested. And then we fast forward to the New Testament, and what does God liken the soil to? Our heart. Your heart requires rest. Unless you and I think we're greater than God and we can sustain all these sorts of things, you need to rest. And stopping revolves around trust. Resting revolves around trust. And it needs to be unto the Lord. And then delight, this idea, and this is this crazy idea of what is delight. Delight is, we take absolute delight in God's creation. Part of that is our family, right? And so we get board games and card games, and we hang out and we do time. We've tried to take the kids on walks. They need a revelation about that. But it's good. You know what I'm saying? God is good. It is good. And find things that replenish your soul. And then there's this last idea of contemplate. And we don't have time to unpack this. But I believe God's going to take our church on this wild journey of coming back to a monastic way of devoting ourselves to the Lord. I see at Elkanah, even us opening over different weeks in the year, these kind of monastic prayer retreats where people will come and they'll go and sit in that chapel. We'll get new carpet by then, Bev, by the way. Because you go in there, you think someone's down under the spirit, but it's just the stench of the carpet. But I believe the Lord's going to take us on a deep journey around this monastic way of contemplating, meditating, being still before the Lord, being silent in his presence, stopping and listening. The Pentecostal prayer meeting doesn't all have to be pacing and speaking in tongues. It can be sitting in the stillness of his spirit and just waiting and waiting. And the Lord's going to take us on a wild journey. It's going to be very countercultural. Very, 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 very. It means I'll have to stop talking. So maybe the Lord should do that work in me first. But we want you to take that candle and we want you to light it, and we want you to, when you do, just be mindful that the Lord's calling you to rest. And the Lord's calling you to give your time as a gift back to him. Amen? Amen. Praise the Lord. I went on longer than I should have. All right, well, I'll keep going then. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone.